The final countdown. The U.S. heads into a presidential election in the middle of a worsening pandemic and unrest in the streets. So, what did SNL have to say about it? Plus, grading our predictions from last week and making new ones. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Monday, November 2nd. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. It is November, Carlo.
Oh boy, it sure is. Can you feel the tension? Can you feel the tension hanging in the air, folks? I know I can. Woo! It's tense out there. Jill, how was your weekend though? How was
My
Halloween?
weekend was not at all tense. It was great. It was nice. I kind of like turned off the news for the weekend just because I needed a break
Smart.
because I knew this week was
Yeah.
going to be so crazy. So I had a nice weekend. And you?
I gotta say the pics of your daughter as Peppa Pig, everything I was hoping for. So thank you for that. Yeah, my weekend was it was fine. I have to say, I went to the grocery store yesterday, and people are hoarding again. I don't know if maybe this was just at the grocery store I was at in Westchester, New York, but the shelves were getting bare, and there were people straight up. It looked like it was March or April. Like people were buying, you know, baskets worth of stuff, and I couldn't figure out, is this because of the election? Which crisis are people hoarding for? Is it the pandemic getting worse? Is it the possibility of civil war? I couldn't even figure it out, but I gotta say it made me a little bit nervous.
Um, wow. I actually don't know what to say. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, should I start hoarding? I mean, like, and I think that that's how it happens. I'm being honest. Like, all I'm
Exactly. No,
thinking
no, no.
during
Yeah,
that is, do I have time to go to the grocery store before I pick my daughter up from school? Because it's what am I
that's how it
missing?
starts.
Am
Yeah.
I going to be?
Well,
Yes. And that is exactly how it starts.
yeah, when you see the guy with, 10 rolls of toilet paper in the aisle, you're like, does he know something I don't know here? Like that's exactly.
All right, let's get to the news and we'll start with some election headlines. A federal judge will be deciding this morning on whether more than 120,000 ballots in Harris County, Texas, which is Houston, must be tossed because they were cast in drive-through locations that the state GOP says are illegal and favor Democratic voters. So mind you, that is the in-person voting, though. It was
Correct.
set
Yes.
up as
Yep.
a drive-through. The last wave of polls showing right now, Joe Biden has a national lead of about 10 points, and then smaller and tightening leads in many swing states. Both campaigns are focusing heavily on Pennsylvania, which is a state that is increasingly viewed as the tipping point. Meanwhile, Axios is reporting this morning that President Trump is planning to declare victory tomorrow night if he appears to be ahead, even if large numbers of votes are still uncounted in states like Pennsylvania.
Just as I predicted, once again for the cheap seats, no state ever reports final results on election night, and they're not legally expected to. When you get calls on election night, that's because the networks or the Associated Press are making projections based on the data that is available. We will almost certainly not have Pennsylvania called until Wednesday or Thursday because they can't even remember in that state and a couple others. They can't even start counting the mail-in ballots until election day. So all of those mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania, they have not even been opened yet. The president is signaling that he plans to stop the counting of valid ballots in places where he has sort of a transient lead tomorrow night. That is really dangerous. I don't know what else to say. Just because he declares something doesn't obviously mean that it's the truth, but just the media especially. But we all have to be very careful about how this is reported tomorrow night. So, but Jill, you were talking about Pennsylvania. Here's why it's all about Pennsylvania, and here's a little rule of thumb for tomorrow night. President Trump has to win the following 6 states: North Carolina, Florida, Iowa, Georgia, Texas, Ohio. If any one of those 6 states is called for Joe Biden, it's essentially over, and you can go to bed. If President Trump wins those 6, he still needs Pennsylvania. But there's, again, virtually no chance that Pennsylvania is called until Wednesday. So write it down if it helps. North Carolina, Florida, Iowa, Georgia, Texas, Ohio. Those all have to be read for President Trump to basically be able to be in the fight.
Meanwhile, 2/3 of Americans say that they're stressed about the election and what comes after. This is according to a recent survey. In a possible preview of what could happen this week, there were sporadic instances of violence and unrest around the country over the weekend. In Texas, the FBI now investigating a caravan of Trump supporters that surrounded a Biden campaign bus on the highway and appeared to force it off the road, according to witnesses and video, leading the Biden camp to cancel a pair of events. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, police pepper sprayed participants of a peaceful march for voter turnout. In Virginia, a group of Trump supporters picketed outside of the home of Attorney General Bill Barr, demanding that he lock up Joe Biden. In California, police in riot gear had to break up a Trump rally after supporters and counter-protesters clashed in the streets of Beverly Hills. Not to be immune in this area, Trump supporters were blocking traffic on some of the bridges in New Jersey.
Yeah. Yeah, up in the New York suburbs too. Yesterday, I saw pictures on social media. NBC, by the way, they have a reporter who just tweeted that crews have started building a non-scalable wall around the White House in the Ellipse in Lafayette Park, right outside the White House. So they're also, by the way, my brother was in Soho on Friday night in New York, downtown New York, and he said that all the businesses were boarded up. It feels like we're. I mean, I can never remember this happening in an election in the past, but it's just a sign of the times, I guess. But Jill, your point about mentioning the caravans, I gotta say, I've never seen anything like it. I don't think anybody has. It's sort of like a new thing in American politics. These huge caravans of trucks waving the flags. I was just thinking, like, somebody with way more time than me should write something exploring like the use of flags in a presidential election. That's sort of a new thing, right? I don't remember. Have you ever seen a Bush flag or an Obama flag or a Clinton flag? I feel like it would be a very good like political science thesis for any of you college kids out there. It's just sort of like a random thought I had when I was seeing this yesterday.
This is just, to me, just so dangerous because it seems like it's not, right? Like just driving in a kind of a parade or blocking traffic, but there are life and death consequences of this. I mean, imagine that Biden bus got into an accident, right? And people were hurt or killed. Or again, this reminds me of Bridgegate with former Governor Christie in New Jersey. What if somebody was trying to get to the hospital, or was then late for picking up their kids, or you're blocking people's mode of transportation. People are going places, especially in a pandemic. No one's just like out for a Sunday drive. I mean, maybe some people are, but most people are trying to get from A to B. How dare you block traffic, right? Like go on the side of the road with a sign. To me, that is unacceptable.
Yeah, no, totally. I also just don't really like. Is it a protest or is it just like a show of support? Why in New York? I mean, it's not like New York is going Trump. I don't know. The whole thing is so strange.
I have to get to. So I drive to work most days, and I'll be in the office Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'm nervous about it. I'm questioning, especially I drive in the dark. How am I going to? I'm concerned that there are going to be issues in terms of me getting to work, especially. Not necessarily on the LIE, but in Manhattan itself.
Yeah.
Of course, this is all coming as we're in the worst place in the pandemic that we've been yet. So the coronavirus is spreading so fast around most of this country that experts say it's not even possible to do contact tracing anymore. Dr. Fauci saying over the weekend, quote, "You could not possibly positioned more poorly than the U.S. is right now." And that got immediate pushback from the White House, and it led President Trump to suggest at a rally last night that he would fire Fauci after the election. So there were chants that were saying fire Fauci, and the president was kind of like, "Oh, you just wait till after the election."
What did Dr. Fauci? It's so again. This just I guess shows that I'm not in touch with sort of like the MAGA beating heart of like MAGA land, but obviously no kidding. But I don't understand how he became sort of like this villain. Like what he's not a political person at all. He's so obviously just like a mild-mannered scientist who is trying to like lead us through this horrible situation. I do not understand how he has become like villainized. But it's not just us, Jill. Europe is in terrible shape. Cases have doubled in the EU over the last 5 weeks. The UK going back into a 4-week lockdown. They're saying that it may actually have to be longer than that if they can't get it under control. Which is, just a reminder that as badly as we have botched the pandemic here in the U.S., which of course we have, plenty of other advanced countries have also been unable to get it in check, or at least they've been able to get it in check, and then it comes back. It's just incredible in terms of how resilient, I guess you could say, this virus is when it comes to its ability to spread through free societies, right? So if we stay on the current path that we're on now in the United States, we're looking at 150,000 cases a day by the middle of this month, 200,000 cases a day by Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is going to be ugly, I think. I gotta say, I don't know.
Well, a lot of health experts now saying December is going to be the darkest month.
Yeah, because of the lagging indicators with the hospitalizations and deaths, I guess, right?
I mean, I don't know. Who could I think if it goes back to like who could have predicted that just we would have no response to this, right? I mean, any expert who was thinking about a pandemic and how many deaths we would have and just, when we'd be able to get back to normal, everything was contingent on the fact that we would hobble together some type of plan. But there really isn't one. So
and the
here we are.
The thing that scares me a little bit, Jill, is in March and April, there was really this sense, I think, of like, we're all in this together, right? We're banging on the pots for everybody. Everyone's like staying home. They're doing their part. Even in Europe, right? There are all the pictures of the Italians. They were under the first lockdown. They're all out on their balconies singing. That is not the case anymore, right? You're not going to see that again this fall. Like, it's a different scene. And I worry what that leads to. Does that lead to more unrest, or people just not doing it? Just saying, you know what, screw it. Like, I'm just going to live my life, and if I get this thing, so be it. I don't know.
It's pretty scary. Okay, just switching gears, there are also 120 referendums on the ballot in 32 states this year. That's fewer than normal, but also far more expensive than normal. So a lot of that money is going towards Prop 22 in California. You may have heard that before. Mm-hmm. So this is a referendum that would give gig economy companies like Uber and DoorDash a carve out on a law that says that they have to classify their drivers as employees. So this has been a huge issue in California. Uber, Lyft, basically saying that if they actually have to do that, they'll may have to go as far as shutting down in those states. Also, Colorado voters are going to be deciding on a paid sick leave initiative. Florida voters going to be deciding on a $15 minimum wage, and then 4 more states, New Jersey, Montana, North Dakota, and Arizona, could legalize recreational pot.
I think Prop 22 passes, but very barely, but like by the skin of its teeth. I think that these companies have spent more than $200 million pushing to get this thing through for that exact reason, Jill, because they think that they can't operate without being able to classify their employees as independent contractors. The rumors are that if it fails, Uber and Lyft will pull out of California everywhere but the big cities. So they'll remain in San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. But again, those are just rumors. I think recreational pot, I think it'll pass in North Dakota, Montana, and New Jersey, but I think Arizona, it will fail. But that'll be interesting to see. Can we just federally legalize marijuana already at this point? I mean, I never really understood why Biden didn't make that part of his platform for the DNC. The polling is overwhelmingly in favor now. It seems like such an obvious layup for a Democratic candidate. But maybe they know something I don't.
There's also a lot of freebies being offered this week, especially tomorrow, from donuts to free rides. Technically, it is illegal to give away goods or services in exchange for proof of voting. So most businesses are just extending it to everybody. Tomorrow, you'll be able to get a free donut at Krispy Kreme, a free massage at Planet Fitness, free delivery from Red Lobster, half off an Uber and Lyft ride to the polls, among plenty of other promotions. Now, before we get to Carlo, did you want to jump in?
No. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm just looking forward to that Krispy
I
Kreme
heard a
donut.
deep breath. I heard a deep breath, so it sounded like you were ready to go.
I was thinking about the Krispy Kreme donut. That's all.
All right, before we get to predictions, did you watch SNL? John Mulaney was
Uh,
the host for the Halloween episode and also the last episode before the election. I don't know where I've been, like what bubble I've been in, but I actually am not familiar with him, but I thought his
so
opening
funny.
monologue anyway was quite funny.
Yeah, but Jill, you've been in the bubble of being a working mom and parent, so you don't
Okay,
sample
fair enough.
all the stand up that's out there. No, he's very funny. He used to be a writer on SNL, and now some of his stand up on Netflix is hilarious. I did think it was very funny. I thought that the skit about where they're doing the musical number where they're in like the Times Square souvenir shop was very clever, and his monologue was very good too. Although I have to say the Jim Carrey Joe Biden just does not do it for me. I thought it was funny for like 10 seconds, and it's just I think it's just not it ain't working. Meanwhile, Dave Chappelle, he is the host next weekend. That is a repeat of 2016 when you may remember Chappelle hosted the first show after Trump won. So that'll be interesting to watch.
If you haven't seen David Letterman's interview with Dave Chappelle on
Oh
Netflix,
yeah,
I highly recommend. For some reason, that just popped up, even though I
just like a
think it
couple of
was.
years ago, right?
Yeah, no, and it's during the pandemic though, because they're
Okay.
wearing masks. I was trying to figure out when they recorded it. Everyone's wearing masks in it, so it has to be somewhat recently, but it's just really good. I actually did not know that much about Dave Chappelle, short of a few of his really popular skits, but I just you learn a lot about him. I highly recommend watching that interview. Okay, my predictions. Let's get to predictions. Okay, interestingly, I was going to say today about Jim Carrey. I was thinking that maybe SNL would change it after the election. That because
Yeah.
I agree with you that I think it's falling a little bit flat. I'm not sure that's doable, but maybe I'll just go out on a limb and say that's
Oh,
my
okay.
light prediction for the week. That
Jim
post
Carrey gets
election,
fired.
Jim Carrey gets the axe. Immediately after election day. But
Interesting.
I don't know. I'm kind of like 50-50 on that one. So last week I predicted that we were going to hit 100,000 cases of coronavirus a day in this country. Sure enough, on Friday, the U.S. reported just over 100,000 new cases, surpassing the 91,000 record a day earlier. This is according to a Reuters tally. I have to say, I threw that out there thinking it was kind of a long shot. I mean, I was looking
Yeah.
at the numbers and I was thinking we would maybe hit it this coming up week. I didn't think we
Yeah.
were going to do it last week. So, I mean, I'm kind of upset that I was right about that one. For my lighter predictions about the Halloween costumes, none came true. I didn't, at least on my social media
I
account,
no,
no one dressed as. Oh, did you see it?
I saw one Karen and I thought
Okay.
of you. But that's all. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, yeah, and no one it dressed up as what I thought was quite clever. The Zoom call, fancy, fancy on top, sweats on the bottom. Um, that's just my everyday look. So I was hoping
Yeah,
someone
exactly.
would have it. Okay, so this week my prediction is, and I will start by just saying I have no idea who's going to win the election. If Biden wins, I will not be surprised. If Trump wins, I will not be surprised. But I think it's going to be anticlimactic. So that's my prediction. For all of the talk of chaos, riots, courts deciding the election, I'm going to just buck the trend and say we might actually know the winner on election night. And if we don't, I don't think it's going to be the mass hysteria that we're all worried about. And I think in part it's because we're worried about it that there's not going to be the mass
Yeah.
hysteria. Michael Beschloss, who I highly recommend following him on Twitter, he is a presidential historian. He noted that we didn't know the presidential winner for certain before midnight on election nights in 1960, 1968, 1976, 2000, 2004, and 2016. So no one should pretend, he says, that there would be anything historically unusual if that happens again in 2020.
From your lips, Jill. By the
I
way,
know.
I
I
don't want
hope
to.
I'm
I
right.
don't. I know you're not trying to gloat here, but I do want to say the score, the current prediction score is 1.5 to 0, and you are in the lead between your COVID prediction and your Big Ten prediction coming a week late, but nevertheless true. Yeah, last week I predicted Obama would be dispatched to Texas. Wrong again. He was not, although he was in Florida this weekend, and Michigan with Joe Biden. Okay, so this week I will make an election prediction, because why not? I predict Joe Biden wins, and it's sort of what you're saying, Jill. I predict that we know by 1 a.m. East Coast time. That's when the final polls close in the West. I'm predicting that it's going to be somewhat anticlimactic. That Biden wins somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 electoral votes. That he wins the popular vote by 5%. I think Democrats take the Senate by a whisker, and they keep the House. So I guess what I'm predicting is a blue wave. I'm predicting the blue wave. Given my streak, I wouldn't take too much stock in it. That's my story, and I am sticking to it. We shall see.
So I tweeted out that I was looking for predictions as well, and I got some pretty fun ones. A lot of football talk, at least about Michigan football.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you have any,
who won Michigan?
Oh, Michigan State.
Oh, bummer.
So someone predicted that that Harbaugh will be fired this year.
Oh, okay. I think
that's
Belichick
the coach of Michigan, for people not familiar.
I think Belichick's fired from the Pats. I should save that. I'm going to save that for next week.
All righty. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Buckle up. It's going to be a long week. That's what you need to know for Monday, November 2nd.
We will get through it, folks.